everybody! So we are here to read our story this week, and this is probably my favorite story of the entire school year. And it's a little different than our normal story, but it's really cool. So the title of our story is The Christmas Mystery at Kaiser Primary. And if you remember, the author is your teachers here at school, and the illustrator is the best part, because who's the illustrator? Yeah, it's you. You get to illustrate this entire story however you would like. So let's read. Once upon a time, there was a third grade class at a little school in West Virginia. The school was named Kaiser Primary School, and the teacher was Mrs. Perry. This class was full of excitement for Christmas and their upcoming holiday break. They had a cheerful classroom that they worked hard to decorate, and one of their favorite parts was the Christmas tree full of ornaments they had all created by hand. It took them a long time to make the perfect tree, and this is why they loved it so much. The tree was not very large, but it was special to the students. It had ornaments they had designed and paper ornaments they had decorated themselves. It was this more special tree just because they had created it here in the classroom. No store-bought ornaments for this class. The students loved to show it off to anyone who visited their classroom. Even Miss Lisa, the principal, loved their tree. She told them it was the cutest third grade tree she had ever seen. "I'm going to take a picture of this adorable tree and put it in the yearbook," she said. The third graders were quite thrilled with this idea. Their little tree was going to be famous. One morning the bell rang and the students walked into the classroom. The first thing they noticed was that their tree was gone. "Mrs. Perry, where is our tree?" cried Christopher. Mrs. Perry looked up from her desk and said, "Why, I don't know. I thought maybe one of you children had taken it to show Mr. West." With the help of Mason and Aaliyah, they began to search the classroom. They looked high and they looked low, but there was no tree to be found. When Ryden and Ariana came in, they helped join in the search as well. However, they had no luck. The tree was nowhere to be found. The students were distraught that their tree had gone missing. They asked each of the teachers if they had seen it, but everyone said no. They even asked Miss Stark, the janitor, to help in the search. But no matter where they looked, that tree just could not be found. There were lots of ideas as to what could have happened. "Maybe aliens abducted it," mused Liam. "No way, that's just crazy. I think someone broke in and stole it," exclaimed Dianche. "Maybe it was an elf on the shelf that took it," shouted Christopher. Now, class, I'm sure this is all just a big misunderstanding. After all, no one at our school would be mean enough to steal a tree from kids. Our tree will turn up and everything will be okay." Mrs. Perry tried her best to calm the students. But the students weren't convinced. They decided to keep looking around for clues and hints that might tell them where their tree went. Little did they know a big hint would be waiting for them after computer lab that day. When they got back to class, John spotted a note on his desk. "What does it say?" Jaden yelled. Rylan handed the note to Mrs. Perry to read aloud. "Thanks for letting us borrow your tree, third grade. We are enjoying it tremendously. We will try our best to get it back to you before school is out." The whole class said, "Who is it from?" But the mysterious letter was not signed. Who could have sent such a thing? The class was abuzz with discussion about who could have borrowed their tree. Alex thought that maybe kindergarten had borrowed it and written the nice letter. Hunter and Matthew didn't agree though, and Tucker and Dessel still thought aliens had abducted it. When the school day was over, Mrs. Perry sent her students home with instructions to ask their parents if any of them had borrowed the tree. But when everyone returned the next day, the students said their parents were the culprit. However, what they did find that morning was a beautiful iced gingerbread cookie on each desk. "I wonder where these cookies came from," asked Tucker N. "I don't know, but they are delicious," mumbled Carson around a mouthful of cookie. Hannah and Hugo nodded in agreement. It was certainly a mystery that Mrs. Perry and her class could not figure out. Who took the tree? Why did they leave yummy cookies on the desk? On the third day that the tree was missing, the students were starting to get discouraged that their special tree might never return. This made them sad because they had worked so hard on it. Mrs. Perry could tell the children were upset and she tried to cheer them up. But the only thing that would make them feel better was the return of their tree. But someone must have been keeping an eye on the class because while they were at lunch that day, someone snuck into the classroom and wrote in red and green glitter on the chalkboard, Don't be sad, our third grade friends. Your tree is being greatly admired and will return to you soon. Thanks for sharing. The students were so excited to have another secret note. This note was not signed either, but they knew it must be from someone magical. After all, who else would write a note in red and green glitter? Maybe the elf idea wasn't so bad after all, said Yendrik. Yeah, elves are sneaky and they like to write in red and green, Jalen added. The class thought that he had a good point. Elves wear red and green clothes, shouted Rylan. Colin nodded his head in agreement. Finally, it was almost the end of the last day of school before Christmas break. Mrs. Perry and her students were getting antsy. They wanted their tree back, and they wanted to know who borrowed it. Just after lunch, they heard a tap, tap, tap on the door that led outside. She walked over, opened the door, and gasped. The rest of the class was speechless. They couldn't believe their eyes. Standing outside the door was a giant reindeer with a bright red nose, and held in his teeth was the missing tree. Mrs. Perry reached out and took the tree in her hands. The reindeer looked over his shoulder, and a tiny elf popped up. In a high, squeaky voice, the elf said, "Thank you so much for letting us borrow your tree. Rudolph here knocked over the one at the North Pole, and yours was so beautiful, we couldn't resist borrowing it for a bit. I'm sorry if we upset you, but here it is, back safe and sound. Santa said to tell you that everyone will be on the nice list and to have a very Merry Christmas." And with a flash, the elf and Rudolph were gone. Mrs. Perry turned around and looked at her class. Everyone was in shock, but they were so happy to have helped Santa when he needed them. And best of all, their wonderful tree was home. I love that story. So we talked about how this week our skill is illustrations. And we're going to talk a whole lot about that tomorrow. But if you would like to go ahead and get a jump start on your illustrating, you can start today. And you can see that each page has big white blank spaces, and that's where your illustrations will go. So we're going to talk more about it tomorrow, but go ahead and get started and have fun.